and welcome back to another video. My name is Steph and today I'm going to be doing a 24-hour readathon, but I'm going to be using the timer method because I'm old and I like to go to bed at 10 p.m. So that means I'm going to be setting my little timer for a 24-hour countdown. I'm going to set it every time I pick up a book and start to read, and the vlog will conclude when that timer hits 0. My main goal in doing this is to get myself back into reading. The last couple of weeks I haven't been posting. I have had my fingers in too many different pies. The world is not putting me in a reading mood, but I have a little TBR that I'm pretty excited about. So the first book that I'm going to read I have called The Magpie Lord. This is set in Victorian England and it's written by KJ Charles, who I have not read yet, but we are following a very rakish sounding man named Lucien Vaudrey, who was exiled to China. He's now returned because he's inherited an earldom. People in his family have died by mysterious means, so he has to call on the assistance of his Stephen Day to help him fix magic problems. And they are gonna fall in love, obviously, because this is a romance. And then later today, I'm gonna pop by my local library to pick up The Helm of Midnight, which I think is a little bit more of a thriller-leaning book, but the killer is using magic. So I have a feeling that the theme of this video is going to be hot people solve magic problems in our world, but that is to be confirmed. Okay, I've been reading for about 1.5 hours and I am currently about 30% into The Magpie Lord. It's definitely less Shadowhunter vibes and more Half a Soul, but cozy gothic. Like if Half a Soul was set in a manor house full of magpies with a potential ghost haunting, then this is what the book feels like, which is actually perfect for my mood right now because it's not been like very dark or heavy, but it has that kind of gothic atmosphere, and the banter and like humor is quite witty as well. So I'm enjoying it. I'm still kind of grasping what this book is about or like what the main plot is, but so far it's about Lucien Vaudrey, the new Lord Crane, who has hired a magician named Day to assist him because when the book first kicks off, we go straight into action. It's very fast paced. They discover that his father and brother were murdered using this type of magic that was hidden in the house, and Day is able to like remove that. And now I think the book is kind of focusing on like who are the enemies, but also uncovering the history of Lucien's family and his past. Because he was essentially estranged from his family, he doesn't know a whole lot of his family members who are left remaining. He doesn't know much of his family history, just that there is this obsession with magpies. It's like the family bird. And the last thing to happen in this book is that he was showing Day around the house and Day recognized a portrait of the family patriarch, like the first Lord Crane, who is known as the Magpie Lord in the circle of magicians. And he was actually like a super powerful, influential magician who Day really respected. So I'm assuming like Lucien might end up having powers. I'm not really completely sure where exactly we're going with this because there is so much that is happening. Like I'm only probably 75 pages in, but yeah, that's where things are at and I'm enjoying it. I like the atmosphere, I like the characters. It is definitely not an insta-love kind of story. They're only just kind of barely beginning to like notice each other, and you know, people's orientations are only kind of getting clarified to the reader at this point at the 30% mark, which I appreciate and like makes total sense. So I'm now reading The Helm of Midnight. I have decided to put down the bird book, The Magpie Lord. As you can tell, I'm just not really feeling it right now. And I'm just gonna put it aside for the time being because I have a strong feeling that this is the kind of book that I'm going to love when I'm in a totally different mental state. I don't know what I need, but it might be Helm of Midnight. I'm really, really enjoying this. I accidentally reset my timer, but I'm somewhere around the 17-hour mark. So this is following two primary perspectives. It is a murder mystery. The first main character that we're dealing with is Krona. She is a regulator, so she's kind of like a police officer. So the thing about this world is that it actually reminds me a little bit of a memory called Empire, in that the society is able to save the skills or the psyche of different kinds of people who have passed on using death masks, which is so cool. And then people can like rent out some of these masks or purchase them and wear them and like then have the power of that person who has passed on. And so when the book opens, somebody has stolen the mask of a famous serial killer. They used to kill people in like super gory ways. We're also reading the perspective of someone who is named Melanie. She's like a servant, and she's kind of like the physician's assistant. And so she has rented a mask to heal her mother. So yeah, around the 30% mark, things are starting to come together and make sense, but I'm really intrigued about where it's going. Krona's running around doing investigations, getting attacked, getting into fights, rescuing people from prison. I think Melanie's about to get herself into some pretty deep shit. Hello, so I am almost finished Helm of Midnight. It doesn't look like it, but there's about 100 pages left. I think I've solved the mystery, but I can't wait to find out if I'm right. There was this thing that was said by one of the characters that it felt like a dead giveaway for the mystery, the murderer who is actually doing this with the mask of Louis Charbon. But when the murderer is killing people, it's like the soul of the serial killer is also imbued into the mask, not just his power. And so when he kills people, he's kind of like a Jack the Ripper vibe, mad scientist type of character. And we get a little bit of his POV as well, which is actually one of my favorite parts of this book. It's so interesting to kind of get someone who, okay, maybe he's a little bit psychopathic, but there is like real reasoning and like real push and pull factors in his life that just make it really interesting to read. I don't know, it's not like a typical serial killer, I like hurting women kind of story, or like not exclusively. And I'm really, really enjoying that part. I'm not sharing any immediate excerpts from the book because I just feel like they wouldn't make sense. And the writing is really high quality, but it's not like lush prose. I mostly just have like my feelings to share about it, and my feelings are very positive. I think this book really blends actually a lot of genres together. Like, okay, there's definitely very strong fantasy world building elements, but it has like a real thrillery, almost sci-fi aspect as well that, yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm having so much fun. It's the first of a trilogy, which I didn't totally realize, but I'm not sad about it. But like I was saying before, the world building is very, very complex because there are like 5 main deities that people will kind of pay tax to. Like financial currency is time tax, so you can have like little coin type of things that are worth like 5 seconds of someone's life. You have emotion tax, where you can like donate some of your emotion or like have some of your emotion taken and then like imbued into stones that can then be utilized to something else. It's a very complex world, and that's kind of why the last check-in, it was taking me a little bit of time to kind of get my feet and understand how all of the different things were interconnected and connected to this murder. Oh, and we are currently checking in, sitting at, I had to reset my timer, but 10 hours, 14 minutes, 59 seconds. Okay, apologies for the probably terrible lighting, but it's quite late. I just got back from a ghost tour, and I have also finished Helm of Midnight. Really enjoyed this book, really enjoyed it. This was not what I expected at all, and in the best way possible. Like, really, I needed something that felt kind of familiar in that it was this fantasy world that was kind of an urban vibe, but unexpected in the thriller aspect, in the storytelling, and the depth of world building. So obviously, as I said before, it is a trilogy. That means that there is kind of a cliffhanger in terms of like what happens to the characters next in the world. I will continue with the series for sure, probably not in this specific video. I would especially recommend this book to anyone who enjoyed the technology / magic of a memory called Empire, and anyone who kind of liked the mystery aspect and like thriller investigation aspect of City of Stairs, because it kind of felt like a blend between those two books to me. And I really enjoyed that. I will say though that especially in the first like 1/3 to 1/4, the thriller mystery trying to catch the killer plot felt like it took a bit of a backseat, because we have this one character who we get a lot of her backstory, and in her backstory is a lot of the world building. So the first chunk is mostly world building, and I still felt like that was interesting to me. I still felt like the plot was, trundling along. It just might not be as fast paced and like breakneck as you might anticipate if you go in thinking that on the back it said that we're trying to catch a killer. Okay, but I really enjoyed this, and I'm really glad that I picked it up. So after that, I have time to kill. I'm gonna probably look at some audiobooks, but the next thing I am going to read in the immediate future is a Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. She's the author of, so far I have enjoyed her shorter fiction a lot more than her long form. It's just worked better for me. I'm gonna go read that. I said that I was gonna start by reading a Spindle Splintered, but that was a lie because I came across an audiobook. I needed to take a break from physical reading if I was gonna actually finish this within a reasonable amount of time. I was going through some of the loans that came through my Libby app from the library, and I had a hold put on The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I'm loving it so much. I feel like this was the test to see if that last book, Helm of Midnight, got me out of my reading slump, and I think that it has. Like, that combined with The Favorites, I don't know what it is about this book, but it is so fast-paced and easy to read and like fun. Like, the drama is delicious. So we are following Kat. She is an ice dancer, and her partner Heath. About 10 minutes into reading this book, I was like, is this a Wuthering Heights retelling? Because Heath is a foster child who their father kind of took in so that he didn't have to move or transfer away, and so that Kat could continue to pursue ice dancing, because you have to have a male partner when you're doing ice dancing, and this is like the one thing that she truly loves. Yes, I stopped, I googled it. It is a Wuthering Heights retelling in the world of ice skating and ice competitions. So the story kicks off when they are like 15-ish, and they get independence from her brother once her father dies, because her brother is kind of an alcoholic and a bit abusive, and it's just not a great situation. So her and Heath get swept up into this ice dancing school by a real professional lady who's won a lot of awards, and they are put into contact almost immediately with the Lynn siblings. They are a sibling pair that do ice dancing together. They are a stand-in for another sibling pair that you're probably familiar with if you know the original story of Kathy and Heathcliff. And it's so good. It is so, I feel like it particularly translates really well to audiobook, because every chapter is really short, but then every few chapters of Kathy telling her story, or Kat telling her story, is interjected with like interview sources or like little bit of notes or like descriptions or whatever from the media that has surrounded them. And so it will kind of foreshadow what is to come. Like, these two girls were about to become really incredible friends, and then there'll be an interview that's like, oh, were they just using each other? Like, the things to come are so dramatic, right? So yeah, I am currently 30% into the audiobook. That's like 4 hours or so. I'm listening to it on like 1.5 speed, and I'm obsessed. I'm loving it so much. Just popping in really quickly to give a few more thoughts on the favorites. It is still one of the most entertaining books I have read probably all year long, but it has diverted a little bit from the sort of inspiration of Wuthering Heights, which I'm still enjoying, but the drama has faded for me a little bit. I think it might be ramping up just one more time for the finale, because I forgot to set my timer when I continued the audiobook for the first hour or so. So I'm just still going to go by the timer because I have a lot of this audiobook left. Because if I can include my final thoughts in this, that would be great. I have 4 hours left and 5 hours on my timer, so we will be able to cover that. But basically, I am about to give a few details about the book in the middle. But if you are familiar with Wuthering Heights at all, then you probably won't be that surprised. Heath goes missing for 3 years, and then he comes back, and he joins up with her friend, one of the Lynn twins, and he's this incredible skater. He was always really good, but then his technique was a little too raw. It wasn't as refined, and he didn't have the skill to kind of match Kat. But when he comes back, he's got this incredible skill, but he does have these mysterious scars. We are 70-something% through the book, as I said. We still don't know where the scars are from. He doesn't want to tell her. I feel like he was just locked up in a gulag or something. What? It has to be something that's going to feed into that final drama or in the book, but I just can't imagine in competitive figure skating where you would both go to get the skills and that level of abuse with all of those scars. So I guess we're going to find out, but so far, a Russian gulag is the only place that I am able to guess, but we'll see. So I finished the book and I have got to talk about it. So this first section is going to have spoilers. I'm going to talk about the end. I will mark it up in the bottom with timestamps so you can just skip over to the non-spoiler kind of final thoughts on this book, but here we go. Spoilers ahead. I was not that far off with Heath going and getting sent to a Russian gulag. Okay, it wasn't a gulag, but at a certain point he becomes so devastated that he hears Kat talking about skating with this other guy, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go to Russia and become an incredible skater and study under this woman who's known to be super brutal. And his scars don't actually come from the training. He kind of had a negative interaction with another male skater who has connections to the Russian mob, and then they pushed him out of a window. And then in the final act, they are trying to sabotage them still when they're performing at Sochi, and it's just unhinged. I don't think that I like any of the characters in a good way. All of the characters did something, at least one horrible thing in the book, if not multiple horrible things in this book to one another. But I feel like I might have been supposed to like them because, if I'm doing spoilers, I'm going for the full thing. Okay, you're getting all of it. Because at the end, he spends a few years being basically friends with benefits with the girl who's kind of obviously a stand-in. I don't think I've even mentioned her name. Her name's Bella. She's a stand-in for the woman that Heathcliff marries in the original Wuthering Heights. And he has this friends with benefits relationship, and then she gets pregnant, and Bella is their coach when he and Kat get back together they get back together in a very slow romantic way. It's kind of given away in the epilogue that they're kind of still on again, off again all the time. Then they have almost a throuple situation by the end. It was so weird. It was really it was. I think this is all I have for spoilers. So now we're starting the spoiler-free section. But the TLDR of this is that I loved the first 30% of this book. It was probably the most true to the original Wuthering Heights story. And then the story kind of got a bit of a mind of its own, which I usually really like, and I did enjoy it. I enjoyed this from the beginning to the end. But the last 25% was crazy and totally unexpected. Quite a unique spin on the end of Wuthering Heights. I think anyone can read this if they have read or are familiar with Wuthering Heights or not. Like, there would be pluses and minuses where I think you would get more out of certain parts because you're anticipating something happening, and then you may not enjoy some parts. Like, for me, there were parts that were not disappointing, but I had an idea of how the original plot should play out in the story, or like how I would have done it, I guess. And then there's a few like major points, and then there's a few major sort of crossroads that the characters come to that they take a totally different direction from the original story. And I did find that kind of challenging. So I don't think that anyone should necessarily pick it up because it is Wuthering Heights, or not pick it up because it is a Wuthering Heights inspired story. It's very much entertaining on its own, regardless if you have that sort of foreknowledge. I feel like the vocal fry is strong today. I don't know why. Yeah, that's the favorites. I did enjoy it quite a bit, and I definitely would say that I am not really in a reading slump anymore. That got me by the throat and pulled me all the way through. And it was so good on audiobook. You should definitely try it on audiobook if you're considering reading this book. So as things stand right now, I have 2 hours and about 3 minutes remaining. I am going to probably finally pick up a Spindle Splintered. I have a very hard time saying this this book name. It's just a bit of a tongue twister. But I'm gonna be reading it on my phone. Probably terrible for my eyes, but that's what we're doing today. So it is 251 pages on my phone pages. So I think I can definitely fly through that. I might even finish it before the 2-hour deadline, depends on how distracted I get. I only have 2 hours left and I'm so excited. And it has been 24 hours. That was just enough time for me to finish reading a Spindle Splintered. I enjoyed this book quite a bit. Every time I read something from Alex E. Harrow, I'm always impressed by how every story she tells is different. Like, you can tell it's still her voice. She still has this really magical way of writing, but there's something different in like the narrative form or like the structure of the story. She's just a really good writer, and I really enjoy everything that she's written, but especially her short stories. So a Spindle Splintered, oh my god, that follows Zinnia Gray. She turns 21 and has a rare illness, so she's kind of anticipating this being her last birthday, and she has an obsession with Sleeping Beauty, and because of that, her best friend Charm puts together this like Sleeping Beauty themed birthday party, and she pricks her finger on a spindle during the party and is kind of tossed into another world where she has to find her way back. It's very much a feminist retelling, and it really seems to focus on agency and it kind of explores like the relationship between the experience of Sleeping Beauty and being a woman in society, especially a woman with like health problems, or a woman who, you know, is living with terminal illness. And so that's something that I thought was actually really well done and was really an interesting and kind of unexpected take on the Sleeping Beauty myth. Nothing is going to probably bump out The Six Deaths of the Saint from my top favorite short stories, but I did enjoy this a lot, and I feel like it's a really good quick afternoon read. In this, there's a lot of like sort of pop culture references, and like it just has a real sense of fun in it, and it was a really good way to finish up this blog. So if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I definitely feel like I have beat my reading slump, whether that was the 24 hours just devoted to reading in the last couple of days, or whether it was I just got lucky and I found some really great books along the way. I don't know, but I'm excited to pick up my next read, and I'm excited to tell you about it in another video very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.